Matt Todd, how are you today? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Alexis Morgan. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. So we're sitting...
PTA president.
Well, yes, I am. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
So
you're supposed to respond state legislative rep, and I say thank you.
Yes, you are the Idaho PTA state legislative rep.
Holla.
Yeah. And you're doing a really good job. But first, I just want to note for me that we're seated a little bit differently today because I really like that Godzilla is behind you today. And I'm driving I'm driving the conversation, but you're sitting in the captain's chair.
Yeah. Well, Godzilla's great. You know, we're fire breathers in here. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
I actually really want to get a, obviously I do the ranch. So I want to get a ranch pop-up like neon sign, a custom one, but they're like a couple $100 and I haven't been able to sport for it. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
And then I'll get like not faux laminate wood behind me. I'll be like real Joe Rogan one day.
You are on your way, Matt, for the state of Idaho. State of Idaho. So you're doing a lot of things like on your podcast. And one of the things that I love that you're doing is that you are bringing people together to have conversations, because you just had the first debate / conversation on your podcast not that long ago. Tell me about it.
So, love debates. Okay. Actually, that's not true. Have you seen a debate on TV recently? They're terrible. They're terrible. And what I was so taken by, again, love Joe Rogan. I have heard multiple debates on his platform over, dietary things or, a multitude of things, right? But they're not like, you have 30 seconds, go. They're more just like these flowing conversations, and people take as much time as they need to articulate points, and then other people get as much time as they want and or need to resolve those points. I find a lot of times when people do debates or forums, those are very, very popular. It's like, oh, we're going to have a candidate forum. And it's like 4 or 5 people up there. It's like, tell me why you'd be the best. 5 minutes go. And by the end of the time, it's like a half an hour has gone by. People are dead. There's no actual interaction. So what I really wanted to do, especially with Prop 1, since I had interviewed 3 people for and 3 people against, I wanted to bring those people or a couple of those people together and just say, hey, look, let's not do the talking point thing. Let's have an actual conversation. So Rod Beck, who is a Ada County commissioner, great guy, and he used to be in the legislature as well. He agreed to come in. He's against Prop 1. And Hiram Erickson, who's from Rexburg, also conservative. He's a precinct committeeman for the Republican Party in Rexburg. And he agreed to drive. It's like 4.5 hours to come and do this. And it was so cool because it was like, oh my gosh, 2 people having a conversation. And at one point, I know you saw it, at one point they're like talking about cereal in the grocery store and just going back and forth. It's like, this is what we should do. Now, from a production standpoint and a conversation standpoint, I feel I could have done a lot better. I give myself like a B- at best, probably a C++, but I know what to do better. And again, we got much closer to like, oh my God, these are just 2 people with a goal of having the best possible Idaho who have different ideas about how to get the best Idaho. And we're just talking about it. So yeah, it was super cool. I hope I can do more of those.
Yes, I hope you can do more of those too, because I really enjoyed, like you mentioned, you have people on your podcast who were for and against, and then it was this opportunity for people who have different perspectives to come together and articulate in an actual conversation with someone who thinks differently than them about what's going on, and to be able to offer their viewpoints along the way. I really enjoyed it. And what is nice about this episode in particular is that the one that we're recording right now, we're having this conversation right now.
We're in the future.
We're in the future. We are in the future. This is a bonus episode for me. Actually, bonus material. And so this is going to be dropped the last Tuesday of October.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is before the election on November 5th. And so I'm really hoping that people who listen to this, who haven't listened to your Prop 1 conversation, go and listen to it, because they provide really good information from both sides of the table.
I appreciate that plug. Again, the Ranch Podcast for anybody listening. But can I tell you something honestly?
Yes.
After having 7 conversations published and many conversations off, I genuinely don't know what the right answer is. And I can articulate, no, here's the thing. I understand what I have a leaning towards, but I also understand the difficulty engaged with predicting how that will play out on a larger scale. And that's a genuine humility where it's like, I don't know, I know what I'm going to vote for, but I don't know what the right answer is. And it's a wild sensation because literally having had all of these conversations, it's like, wow, all parties have points. Now, obviously the viewing public and voting public gets to decide which points are more valuable than others, and not all points are created equally. That's fine. But gosh, man, like what a wild ride we're on. It's so exciting.
Well, it kind of like points back to, for me, this idea of I saw it on a TV show once, actually. It was a woman who was the Secretary of State and I love that TV show. I think it's called Madam Secretary.
Oh.
And she basically says, she's talking about the United States and how it really is this great experiment, which is true. Like we're still living it. And one of the things that I pulled out from the conversation with Rod and Hiram was on your podcast was that the way that elections have occurred throughout our history of the United States has changed. They haven't always been the same, right? So we are a nation that is evolving, changing, adapting. We're doing all of those things. And so when you say, is it right? I look at that and go, I don't actually think there's a right answer.
Yes.
Right?
That's beautiful.
There are answers.
Yeah.
There are options. Like people have options. And I was talking to my professor, Dr. Jackie Kettler, who's been on your podcast as well. And she's a professor at Boise State in political science. And I was asking her perspective. And it was fascinating as she was like going through about, well, you know, it's interesting. We're using examples like Alaska and Maine, and those are own intricate components, just even like, you know, bottled up in a state, which is different from Idaho. And she was just talking about, it was really interesting just to even hear from her as a professor who understands these materials. She didn't say there was a right answer.
Right. When I interviewed her, which was great, she's super articulate, super fun to talk to, super knowledgeable. And she was bringing up examples of party power and some people would articulate political imbalance from like 1890. And it genuinely warmed my heart. Because we get every single election, they tell you this is the most important election. And fine, they're important. And maybe there is one that is slightly more important than others. But we've had these swings, these political swings, these upheavals. We've had, you know, alcohol was legal, then it was illegal, now it's back to legal. Like we have all of this swirling mass of crazy that we get a front row seat to. And it just, again, when she articulated, she's like, oh, well, like in the 1880s and 1890s, you had these like really powerful groups and a lot of citizen-led initiatives came in. It's like, oh, so there's precedents for having, you know, imbalances in the past. And she was very quick to say, well, the parties would not agree they were imbalances, but some of the citizens did. Like, and it's like, there we go. They're like, we're just people. We're just people. We're dealing with an imperfect political machine. Mm-hmm. We're trying to do the best we can, you know, like, God, man, what an adventure. I get so pumped.
It is. It is. And I will say also, November 5th which is, you know, election day, is my birthday. I love it.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I love
Happy almost birthday.
I know. Thank you. And I love it when my birthday falls on election day. It's like kind of fun for me. I don't know. It just is. And so this year I have 2 teenagers that are going to be voting in the election. And the school district that we're in, West Ada, because of different like polling locations and stuff, they were planning to take Wednesday, November 6th off, and they shifted it to Tuesday, November 5th. And so there's no school on Tuesday, November 5th for our kiddos in the school district. And so
I'm not texting anyone. I'm making a note of your birthday and putting it on repeat. November 5th. God bless it.
Yes, it's a good day. So
it's a great day.
It's a great day for me. So anyways, on my birthday then, which is election day, my teenager that is of voting age and is a senior in high school, my birthday gift per my request is that she go vote with me.
Oh, awesome.
I know. And she's already agreed to it. And I'm like super pumped. That's my birthday gift from her.
Are you 2 gals going to get dressed up and go get coffees you're not going to drink and then go vote?
Yeah.
That sounds like fantastic.
That. Yes. We're going to do something just like
Coffee,
that.
black, throw it out the window.
I'm like really excited about it. Like I'm definitely going to take a photo and post it.
Did I don't even know if I told you this. I'm walking through the Y the other day. Did I tell you this?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Like the Y, like the YMCA.
Like the YMCA. Walking through the YMCA with my 2 older boys, 10 and 12. And I walk past the climbing wall and look to my left. And this kid comes running up. Aiden. Like this. I was like, And Aiden always helps out with rock climbing with my youngest son, the 8-year-old, and it's talking to him and all this thing. And, Aiden's cool. He's a high schooler. And he's like, so I got to tell you this. I'm like, okay, man, cool. And he was like, so I'm in government class. And immediately I was like, oh no. And we're watching this podcast with Phil McGrain, the Secretary of State. And I keep thinking, who's that guy? I know. So in his school, his government teacher was making them watch my episode with Phil McGrain from May, where we talked about the Idaho election system and the mechanisms in place and the safeguards and all these things. Since that point, I've done many episodes with Phil McGrain, but the podcast is being integrated into government curriculum, like academic curriculum.
Holy cow, look at you.
How crazy is that?
You are this podcast and it's like going to other places.
So I told Aiden, I was like, hey, I have one more podcast with Phil McGrain prior to the election, but it's at like 6:30 in the morning. And I bet if you want to come and like listen live, you'll be our live audience of one. He was like, oh my God, I'm going to ask my parents. This is going to be great. I'm going to tell my government teacher. He clicks a selfie.
Oh
it was
gosh,
great. I was like, dude, God bless you, sir. Awesome.
I love that. I love that like I love that a teacher is like using their resources right here. I mean, it's like on the internet, but a resource that's really good, right? Like you're interviewing the Secretary of State and then he's talking about elections. And so these kids get to learn in real time, like about elections, and they're learning from someone who's in the position right now in their state. Like that's an additional cool component to that.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I didn't know even that we had a Secretary of State.
Right. And this is the thing. He was talking about how they were required to watch the podcast and like take notes. He's like, I hated the notes, but I was locked into the show. So it's like, okay, we have effectively made something that you could take a 17-year-old, turn this on, and we're literally talking about elections in Idaho, and the kid's locked in and like, oh my gosh, I want to finish this episode. He hated the fact that he had to write notes, but like that didn't exist when I was in high school. Like having a medium like that was both informative and entertaining and readily accessible, geographically relevant, like so cool, man.
It's way cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now we are 2.5 months into the school year. Right? Yeah. We're 2.5 months in. How's it going for you and your family? And I get it. You don't have to like spill all the dirty details or anything like that.
Spill the tea.
Spill the tea, Matt. No, I'm just saying how's it going? Like what types of things are you guys experiencing as a family in Idaho in our education system?
Okay, so there are aspects of the Idaho public education system that are far superior to the system I left in a different state. May or may not start with a C and end with California. So, so I find that our schools consistently are safe. They're not politicized. That's not to say that all schools in Idaho are not, but in the West Ada School District, they don't appear to be, which is great. I do have issues that I think are coming to a head with our school system in general. And it's the integration of technology. It's an integration of technology at all levels where, I have very young elementary kids that are using it get to use it for classroom management, or like they get to substitute creative station or creative time, where, you might have like a first or second grader that can go and put like, toilet paper rolls and a bunch of tape and stupid things and call it a rocket ship. It's not a rocket ship, but it looks like it in his mind. You have that, or, hey kid, you can just jump on your school administered Chromebook and like look up pictures of aliens. And every time it's like, please God, pick the toilet paper rolls and the tape. Like that sounds like the best half hour of my life. And every time without fail, you can bet your bottom dollar this kid's going to select the computer and like look up pictures of aliens, get no value out of it. And that's a tough one. And there are aspects of that analogous, proportionate to the age and the grade, that go up through my other kids too. So I think Idaho has done a tremendous job of saying, hey, look, in education, we are not about politics, right? And of course, they have government classes. And of course, there's an argument about like what version of history we should teach. That's fine. And I even had those robust discussions in my high school. I remember my government teacher talking to us about draft. What do they draft? Vietnam War, you get drafted and you would avoid it. Draft dodgers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I remember him talking about that. And he's like, you don't read that in our history book, right? Like you don't read about these other things. So I think the aspect of alternate history or a different lens through which we should view history, I think that's an important conversation to be had. I don't know that there's ever a universally right answer. And I think Idaho is trying to address that, at least my school district, saying, hey, look, man, like we only have so much time in the day, right? Like we could naturally talk about every single different lens of history and take up all of the education system. So that's fine. But I think what I have been working on with tech safety and having these more broad, not just Idaho, but national conversations with some education tech leaders and other people, I think this is really shaping up to be the next big question, which is, to what degree do we want our education system to be dominated by technologies and thereby the companies that control those technologies?
And it's interesting because we were talking about this before we started recording, and I was telling you about the experience of my kids. So, like, I've got 4 kids, and when my older 3 went through elementary school, which was in like 3 different states, it was in Oregon, it was in New Hampshire, and then it was here in Idaho. My kids didn't have an experience with computers and technology. It wasn't in their everyday practices.
I'm just curious, your oldest that didn't have everyday computer in elementary and middle school and whatnot, can he type? Does he know how to Google? Like, is he successful?
I'm telling you, I think he might be the most knowledgeable out of all of us.
There you go.
And I mean, to that point, like he's in college now and he has learned how to do such incredible things on a computer because he learned skills when he was growing up about problem solving and, being assertive and being a lifelong learner, all those things. But so it just to point out that like actually my oldest 3 kids went all the way through elementary school with no personal devices. It wasn't until their later elementary school years that I think the parents and the principal worked together to get like a computer cart and that was shared among teachers if the teachers wanted to access something on the computer.
Right.
So it wasn't until my youngest was in elementary school, and she was the only one in elementary school, where she was having a computer every day. Like she was on it and then it was hers and she had to have it all of the time. And it's interesting. I can see I've lived a different perspective. I've lived a different experience with my kids when my older 3 were in elementary school versus my younger one being in elementary school when it comes to technology. As a parent, I can see the difference in the educational experience.
Yeah.
And like what you're describing.
Yeah, it's a really tough pill for me to swallow because again, I do believe in public education and I think public education is trying its best, but I think there are these inherent flaws in having a technology-based public education in its current iteration. And again, when I say technology-based, I don't mean technology supplemented. Technology supplemented is what I think like when I was in middle school, we had a computer lab. And I think I've told you this before. I had Miss Gilman. She was a computer lab teacher. We had a big, we had desk in the middle and then the entire perimeter of the room had all these, do you remember like the old school Macs that were like the onesie Macs with the little, some of them only had green screens and then a lot of them were in color and everything. And I remember going through in 7th and 8th grade, different PowerPoint presentations. We'd go to computer class, all of these things. And we sufficiently learned technology really well. Like it was not a problem. And I think as a culture, especially around education, the more hammers we get, the more nails people try to find. And then the nails obviously justify the hammer's existence and all of these things. And we are living in a technology age and people see technology as this great benefit and equalizer, so to speak. They're like, hey, our most vulnerable kids and our lowest income brackets, all these things, they need tech. And yeah, that may be, but to what degree do we allow that to dominate they also need boredom. They also need to sit down and they need penmanship, which does not come from typing. They need unbound creativity. You can be creative on a computer in very specific ways. You need some toilet paper rolls and tape. What can you make with that, right? You need to interact with the real world. So again, we have the good news is we're like this crazy rich country that can provide all this technology and great. But at what point does that technology detract from the life experience that we also know our children need to have?
Yeah. I agree. Those are good and important questions I think that we need to be asking, like as parents, as community members, in our school communities, with our teachers, and then even like as government leaders who are making, and school administrators like who are making these decisions. We need to be asking those types of questions because then it will help us rethink about where we are. And we need people right now who are in positions of power to be rethinking about where we are. We need that. And we need to be looking at data, not just, and I'm not meaning like, oh, we should be so data driven that we're only looking at data, because I think some of these perspectives are things that we're noticing, right, as adults, and
Sure.
going like, whoa, this isn't right for our kids to be experiencing these things. This doesn't really feel like so much of as a human experience as it does a human experiment. And we don't want to be experimenting on our kids, right? So like, I think we need to really kind of come back to this place of we're making observations, we're understanding different things as adults, and then we're also using data to see and understand what's going on. And what data is showing us is that our children have like a major rise in mental health issues, right? We're not, I mean, I'm also noticing that my youngest child, who has had a computer for 4 years, when I watch her like type on a computer, she's not doing it like how I learned in school. I don't know what has occurred yet, but they have not taught kids how to appropriately type
Right.
on a keyboard.
They use like the two fingers. Or...
Yeah, she's got like 3 fingers going on. And I mean, I haven't watched her like recently. This was like the start of her 6th grade year, but I thought, whoa, like when I took keyboarding class, which wasn't until maybe the 7th grade the first time, and then finally it was like in high school, where you're sitting there and you just have that thing in front of you and you're typing and your hands are covered so that you can't see, right?
And they're gauging your accuracy and speed and the whole thing. Yeah,
all of the things. I don't know that they're doing that, right? They're just exposing them to a computer and a mouse, and these kids can figure out a lot of things because they're, really intelligent, but they don't need, I don't know, just like as a parent, like it's like I've said on here before, when my child had an issue with the computer last year in 6th grade and the administrator was like, well, what do you want me to do about it? My response was, I didn't issue this piece of device. I don't
Right.
think my kids should have one.
Right.
Have such high access, not because kids are untrustworthy, but because when kids are given options, they're generally going to go towards that computer. And kids don't need to be sitting on a computer during a World Civ class doing a worksheet for the entire class period every day of the school year. They don't need to be doing that.
They don't need to be doing, and this is the thing that I think we need to come back to, which is everyone, like the burden of proof for value should be on the school districts. Like if the school district doesn't have a worksheet, or excuse me, not a worksheet, but like a memo or something saying like, here are all of the benefits of one-to-one tech that we know to be true, that justify the expense, the utilization of tech frequently, all of the fallout of that utilization, which I think we will continue to understand from a neurological standpoint. Like you're plugging, 8 and 9, like my child who's 8 years old that's playing on his Chromebook instead of doing Creation Station. What's the neurological consequence of that? Like that's not an innocuous action. You do that long enough. If you gave kids an hour per day to do a Creation Station versus giving them an hour a day to work on their Chromebooks, that would not deliver the same result of spatial awareness, of world awareness. I mean, like all kinds of things. It just wouldn't. So what is the academic benefit that justifies these things? And if we're not having that conversation, we're not even asking for that. And by the way, I'm over saying like, oh, it's not, like, let's just ask. Yeah. And if it's so difficult that they're like, well, it's like qualitative and blah, blah, it's like, do you have a justification? I think there should be a conversation around that. I don't think people would like to have that conversation, and that's fine. You don't have to like it, but I think we as parents and community members that are funding schools should be able to ask, hey, why are you doing this? I'm just curious. Like, help me, sell me on it. Like I'm ready to be sold. I want to be happy. So just sell me on it. What is it?
Yes, asking the questions. We need to be asking questions. That's
Right.
how we change and learn and grow. We ask questions. So this kind of leads into kind of do you like how I haven't quite hit the three things that I want to hit yet today?
I don't know what those three things are, so let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
I'm
So
just here for the coffee.
I know you're here for the coffee, and I'm here just for holding my warm
There it
drink.
is. Oh
I
my God, your
love
tea
it.
that you're never going to drink. Keep
I
going.
love it. I love it. Okay. So you and I both know that I'm the state PTA president. And I love it. It's great. I have had such an amazing experience going out and meeting parents and district leaders and superintendents and school board members like right where they are. I really do enjoy meeting people like and hearing about their experiences and helping them, and helping them see that they can speak up for the things that they care about. So I'm not going to be the PTA president, the state PTA president forever though. You and I both know this. And we have an excellent person who is going to be taking the reins on June 1st, 2025.
Look at that.
Yes. So, but I really do care. I mean, even before I became the PTA president, I cared about school communities and I want to do something that comes after. And so you and I were having a conversation and I was like talking about some of the ideas that I have. And it was actually you who encouraged me to take my podcast, the Our Kids, Our Schools, to a higher level. And so that's my plan. Like I'm in the process of creating a website because I want to have a landing page for people within a school community to be able to understand their school community better, right? Like, so for parents to have like tips on how to build partnerships with their principals or, resources for understanding how to create school initiatives or how to get people together on this thing that you care about. Like we've got this group in Boise who's doing some incredible things, linking everyone in to over to their page and linking people into like what you're doing here on a statewide level, particularly for education. So that's my plan and I'm really excited about it.
Listen, I love this because when you and I met, it was because somebody turned me onto your podcast and they're like, listen to this lady. And I listened to like episode number 2, which was just literally about the structure. I was like, I'm going to turn this on. It's going to be trash. 99.99% of podcasts are trash. And like turned on and there you were speaking coherently, clearly, intelligently. You weren't saying like, and you were just talking about the structure of education, elected versus appointed versus all the stuff throughout the state of Idaho. And I remember listening to it. I was at a pickup line picking up my middle schooler and I literally was like, I need to write this down. Like I can't keep because you were, again, it all made sense. I wanted to remember it. You and I connected and I realized, wow, here I am. I even care, but how else am I going to find this information? And that's when you and I started talking on a more regular basis. Like, oh my gosh, this is all of the stuff. Like these are all of the deets on school communities. And most people walk around totally naive of the structure, of who's in charge, of who's responsible, how they even engage with people. The number of times people have reached out to me with a potential problem in my elementary school or my middle school, they're like, I think this is happening. It's like, well, have you contacted the people? They're like, no, I will. It's like, send them a text, send them an email, and you just fire that off. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is the clarity. Like this isn't happening. They're like, oh, okay. So it's encouraging and enabling, empowering communities to engage with their school and helping them understand. I mean, that was one of the instant things I got out of it. I was like, oh, this lady gets it. And if more people knew this, we'd have greater accountability. We'd have greater education. Maybe we'd have better faith in our public education system. Maybe not. All schools are different. But yeah, I love this idea. Having like a one-stop shop for people who actually want to know how to get things done for their school community because they're our schools and our kids.
Yes. Thank you, Matt. So I'm really excited because the first campaign that I'm actually starting now is the more social, less media in our school communities. And I'm going to be working with a high school and I'm really excited to help them kind of get the flyers out, get their student council, whatever student leaders they have involved to be able to kind of promote this because what we're seeing, right? We know that there's data that supports that so much social media impacts our students' mental health. It impacts adults' mental health. We know this. So, a lot of schools right now are removing cell phone usage from the classroom, period. Whether that looks like a middle school where they've totally taken it out of the school experience, bell to bell. We have some of our schools that are just taking it out for the classroom period, which is also like making an impact. And we've got some high schools, districts in the Treasure Valley that are saying, nope, we don't want any of this. We don't want to see your cell phones at all. So, but part of this is to say that like we as parents need to create more social experiences for our kids that are like natural and organic, but also help them maybe push, like kind of like nudge, in the appropriate ways to get them, maybe out of their comfort zone a little bit to try new things. I mean, I know that at like our kids' middle school, because our kids go to the same middle school, they have like one school dance a year. And when I was in middle school,
They were so awkward.
that's the best. It's supposed to be that way. It is supposed to be that way, Matt.
Well, it was successful.
Yes. I mean, they're like middle school kids. And by the way, they were in the 6th grade. That was just like, I don't think it was an entire school dance, or was it just 6th graders. So I just saw a little 7th grader, and I asked him if he was like in student leadership, and he said he was like in this one type of student leadership. And I was like, awesome. I want you to try to have more school dances. And he was like, no, we don't want those. And I was like, you need them, man. You need them. And when I was in middle school, we had like 4 dances, and those were good for us. We need more we need our kids to have more like good social engagement.
Did you really look at the 7th grader and be like, you need him, man? You need him. Did you say,
yes,
listen, man, you got, and he's like small, and you're like, listen, buddy.
Yes, I totally did.
Yeah. There's when I was still doing education, because I did private education, private SAT and ACT college entrance for almost 20 years. There was a school that I worked with a lot of kids coming out of that required that you did, I think it was something like 5 seasons total of 3 different sports. So they required to graduate that you do 3 different sports, and you do at least 1 season of one and then 2 seasons of the others throughout your 4 years, right? So you had 12 seasons total. So it's not even like half your high school, but it's that type of thing where you require engagement. And because you have required engagement, you have less of a cliquey feeling. You don't have just the pro people that are like, like whatever. I thought that was great. Right? Back then I thought it was great. And now it's like, God bless it. Can we do this? Can we provide enough clubs? Can we provide enough social engagement and then put some kind of mandatory ring on it? So it's like, hey, we have 4 dozen clubs to pick from. You're required to be in 2. Pick whichever 2 you want. And if we don't have your club and enough people like your idea, we'll make the club for you. But this is what you have to do, right? You need a faculty sponsor. We'll give you a space. We'll give you a time. Boom. Like, we're going to have to go down that route, because our kids, if given the option between unending, terrible, addictive tech and human interactions, especially at the formidable middle-age years, they will just select the tech because it's awkward. It's awkward and weird.
Yes. And so I'm really excited about this. More social, less media in our school communities.
I love that.
It's great.
It's great.
I'm super excited about it. So that's like something that's like up and coming, and I'm working on with like a website designer, and it's going to be something that like slowly unfolds, because I'm still the PTA president, for another 8 months. And I mean, we've got some, and that like is now my segue into, so I'll just tell people, go check out my website. It might just have like a 1-pager on it at the moment, but more things will be coming. And I'm always up for ideas, because I really know that I don't see everything. So if like people have ideas, or also I just like wanted to throw out there, like, if you have someone that you would like to be on the podcast, let me know, because I don't know everyone in school communities either. And I'm just here like bringing people in when I see them and meet them.
I'm just doing the Lord's work. Doing the Lord's work for education.
I'm just trying here. Okay, so this segues into the third thing that I wanted to talk about.
Have we already done 1 and 2?
Yes, we've done 1 and 2.
What was the first one?
The first one was the podcast to the website.
Oh, fantastic. And the second was more
the campaign, more social, less media in our school community.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Number 3.
So number 3 is the PTA tech bill.
Yes.
I'm like really excited about this bill. This is something that you and I are working on together. You, as the originator of the idea, you found the space, and now we are 2 parents working to make change around the entire state. So let's talk about it.
Man, this one in particular. I was not a member of the PTA in my former life. And even when I, got engaged in the schools here, I was not instantly a PTA person, or at least the wife may have, in fact, registered for me the PTA, but I wasn't engaged, right?
I can confirm that your wife did register for you for the PTA. I have heard
much.
that from your local elementary PTA president.
God bless you, woman. Anyway, the point is, so I didn't understand the PTA. I didn't understand what the PTA was. Okay. I thought from my former life, it was just like this fundraising thing. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to like sell cookies and stuff. But that's not what the PTA is. The PTA is a funnel shape aggregation system of representation for parents and students throughout the state of Idaho to directly advocate for the best possible opportunities for every student in Idaho, whether or not your school is a PTA school. Okay. I get that now because the cattlemen have an association. The water users have an association. The Farm Bureau is an association. Farm Bureau is actually designed exactly like the PTA. They have individual charters or chapters or whatever they might be all throughout the state. And they all talk to information going funnel to the top where the guy at the top is like, okay, we're hearing this from all the people in the state. And then the Farm Bureau guys go to the legislator and say, hey, our members are having this issue collectively. That's what we get to do as the state PTA. I've had the good fortune of going to talk to the representatives and senators saying, I'm the legislative rep. We are hearing this from the state. This is what the parents want, or this is what students want, or this is a concern of a large portion. To that end, realizing that we're in a bind with tech, and the bind is that the tech we are distributing as a public school system in the state of Idaho is not 100% safe. No one disputes this. The problem is people don't know how unsafe it is. And it does have the possibility of being the worst unsafe. And we won't go into details, but suffice it to say, you go to any sheriff or police department of a medium to large size metropolitan area in the state of Idaho, and they will likely confirm that they have school tech in evidence that they've engaged with it. And that's not anyone's direct fault. Right? Like when we initiated the tech programs and the tech issue and the tech-based education during COVID, everybody's scrambling. Okay. But now we know, we're like, hey, this stuff is not, it's very, very safe. Schools go to work every day to make it safer, 100%, but everyone knows it's not 100% safe. So as such, I started talking to the representatives, school boards, superintendents, ICAC, that's Internet Crimes Against Children, representatives, detectives, the whole thing. And we came up with a parent education idea because the real risk is not that, the kids are going to do something bad. Kids will do something bad. That's a guarantee. The real risk is that parents don't know that the kids can do bad things. It's like a car. I always tell people, look, I had a 1988 champagne color Honda Accord. God bless America. And it was like, it was stick. So I learned how to drive stick, which was cool. But the bad part is I could also burn out, right? So it's like rev up all 5 horsepower and then drop the clutch and front tires that were about that wide peeled out. And I was like, thought I was cool. But I'm only here because I had that car. If I had a Porsche 911, no matter what you told me, I would have killed myself. Like guaranteed, I probably would have taken other people out too. That's just the way kids are, right? And some of them may heed warnings, but most will just act as kids act. The real problem is the parents don't know that. Did you know, and I bet you didn't, that the number one riskiest time for children on the internet is between 12 and 4 a.m.?
No. From
the ICAC executive director in Idaho. I was interviewed him last week and he was like, what we have come to find out is that the riskiest time for children is when their parents are asleep, because the children will go while parents sleep, even if they take the tech away into a centralized location. And from midnight to 4 a.m., the kids creep down, grab their phone, grab their Chromebook, grab their iPad, whatever, and then they engage and explore the internet where there are plenty of bad people waiting for them. So that's a piece of education where it's like, hey, parents, if you knew that this was the riskiest time and that when you go to sleep, there's a probability, a non-zero number, that your child will creep down and grab the tech, would you behave differently? Every parent says yes. We made an education platform in collaboration with the different law enforcement agencies and offices, as well as SRO Gomez, who's nationally recognized. Dave Gomez, he's the best. Google him. As he always says, Trump, Obama, Gomez.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes, he's amazing.
He's the best.
Yes.
So we made an online platform to educate parents about the risks of personal tech and school tech. I'm not just picking on school tech, right? Like school tech is a piece of it for sure. But what we also realized is public education in Idaho is really at risk, because if they don't shore up at least this piece, if they don't take responsibility to say, hey, look, we understand this is not 100% safe. We want to help. We want to help educate you so you can keep your kids safe with our technology, right? If they didn't do that, that would be a real problem. So we made the program. You and I go and meet with Debbie Critchfield, the superintendent of Idaho, and say, hey, look, here's the situation. We have this tech. We're not advocating to remove tech. We're advocating to educate parents so that parents can keep their kids safe. I also talked to representatives. We drafted a bill. The bill will require, and we're very hopeful, Debbie Critchfield is on board with it, as are a number of other associations. We are very hopeful that the bill will pass, but it will require that if you're a public school system in the state of Idaho and you distribute internet-based technology, you have to provide an education program that can help parents keep their children safe. This is it. First off, it's a first in the nation program. It's a first in the nation bill and parent-facing tech program that would educate parents to keep their kids safe using school tech and personal tech. It's wild. This is going to be the most lit legislative session in the history of the PTA.
Yes, I'm really excited about this, on so many different fronts. And part of it is because a parent saw an issue. You as the parent saw an issue, and then you said, I need to help solve this problem. And I can do that. And you used your resources to solve the problem. So that's the number one thing for me. And it's something that you frequently say is, parents are the solution to the problem. I was just reading this article for a class about the history of PTA, and that was it all started back in the early 1900s because parents saw women, they started with mothers saw problems and they wanted to help. They wanted to address those problems. So they got together because they were we see these issues. And it was interesting because part of their original platform was that they would kind of see issues, they'd create, initiatives, and then they'd come up with solutions, and then the schools would agree. And then the parents would pass that off to the school. So then the school would be the keeper and someone who was addressing that problem. So it wasn't always, it wasn't parents doing it constantly. Then it went over to the schools, which is what this is in my mind, where it's we see this issue, listen, schools, you're issuing this technology, and we want to make sure that you are appropriately informing parents of the dangers and limits that piece of technology has, that you are really requiring that student to take.
Right.
So it is and one of the things that I like in here is that it discusses, it's a very simple bill. We had, state education leaders looking through this, and they were really pleased, well, this is really well written. I'm really looking forward to getting the feedback, from some of these people on the bill. But one of the things that it talks about, really, it's about online safety awareness. And in the bill, it is articulated that a school district must hit 4 different components in their providing information to the parent. Now, the state's going to have an option that school districts can access and, pass right through on to their parents.
Right.
But one of the things that I think is really important is that when in this bill, it's not what is inadequate would be to say, we're going to add a paragraph at the bottom of an email, or we're going to add a paragraph at the bottom of this form that parents sign every year that say they're going to protect this device. That is inadequate. That's having a paragraph somewhere where parents are reading these things. No, we're saying that's not adequate.
A little intellectual experiment. Okay. I take something the size of a cigar box, but it's all black and you don't know how it opens. It's just a black box. Okay. And I write a paragraph on top saying, hey, I'm handing this black box to your kid. Your kid has to have it. It is very dangerous. Watch out. And I hand it over. And that's the end of our conversation. You now know that there's a risk with this black box. You don't know what it is. You don't know how to mitigate it. You don't know how it originates. That's at best what schools are doing now, because most schools and most districts throughout the state of Idaho and throughout the nation are not even accepting or articulating or divulging that there's any risk associated with the black box of the tech they hand out, right? I mean, think of it this way. It could blow up. Like you leave it in the sunshine in your car, like the battery could blow up, whatever. I don't know. You could drop it on your foot. It could break your foot. Like there are all kinds of there's choking hazards. You got a little kid, a baby, and they pull off the keyboard. Like there are all kinds of problems, right? Like, I don't know, get the lawyers involved. I don't know. There are problems. But and we're not talking about all problems with like batteries exploding and this, that, and the other. We're talking about, hey, this can be used in a very specific way to harm children. And we know it can because it has been used in these specific ways to harm children, right? And therefore, we're going to tell you what specific ways it was used, how you can ward against them, things to look out for, and just that's it. And we're going to let you know that this is a reality. Just that, empowering the parents with the knowledge of what can actually happen, what the nuances of it are, and how they can practically stop it right now today. That's great. And that little thing, as small as it is, it's not only like, it's just the right thing to do. It's like, that's it. It just is.
I agree. It is the right thing to do. And so often I attend, whoops, I'm a little bit farther away. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Woof. So often, I mean, I've attended different speaking engagements where the speaker's up there and they're talking about something and they're talking about a problem and they're telling, the audience about the problem. And you're sitting there and you're learning about the problem. And as an audience member, you're agreeing that it's the problem. Yes, this is the problem. Like that's a problem. And then the speaker concludes.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks for coming. And it's you walk away as a parent, as a person, and you go, okay, well, I know that there's this problem now, but what am I supposed to do about it? Whoa. Like, are there resources? What kind of resources are there? And also this thing that I attended tonight, this was the only free time I had all week long because I work, I've got kids, I got to get them to school, I got their activities. This was the time for me to learn about this thing. And now I don't have the information that I need to be able to do something about the problem. I mean, I know you and I have sat through those types of experiences, and it just as like someone who wants like really good information to be able to take some level of action, whether that's like for me personally or my family, it just feels really crummy when I sit in something and they don't give actionable like empowerment components
right
when they're saying this is a problem.
Right.
So that's what I really like about this program that you've created, which is Fortify Your Kids. And they are 4 videos that are less than 24 minutes total watch time. Right. And they are like, the website is like very like cleanly laid out. It's very straightforward. So the other day I thought to myself, what would it be like if I watched these videos while I was getting ready? So I took out my phone, I put the videos on, and I did my hair and I did my makeup. And within those 24 minutes, and I brushed my teeth. I did all 3 of those things. Okay, that took me 24 minutes, but I was like, I was crimping my hair, okay, or like putting waves in it or something like that. So I did all of those things, and I was able to watch the content. I was able to understand the content, and then I was able to understand what I could do as a parent afterwards. And they were like super engaging, very straightforward. None of this there was like really no fluff. It was just, straight to the point. Right. So these videos are super fantastic. So talk about Fortify Your Kids.
Sure. So again, Fortify Your Kids was specifically designed with law enforcement collaboration and other people to say, okay, look, because we know we live in an attention economy, right? Like, so if attention is the most expensive thing and people are going to give us their attention, how do we capture it as quickly as possible? So what I did is, in designing the program, the content, we stripped it all the way down, which is like, okay, what would we absolutely have to convey to arm somebody with information that they could act on today, right now? So like, that was the intention of the program. You got to tell people the real risks. You have to help them redefine the risk arena. You have to help them understand the mechanics of how scams and whatnot work. And then you have to give them best practices. So once you give them all that information, it's like, and this is what you do. They're like, got it. I have the bad information. I have the reality. And this is what I do with it. From a technical standpoint, which I'm very, very proud of, we essentially leaned on all of the things that we know make social media addictive. So we're talking bump cuts, we're talking additional media, we're talking music in the background, we're talking a lot of movement. I also structured it from a cinematic standpoint to be something that you could watch off of your phone super easily. Because it's like, you can't expect a parent to sit down in front of, like, I don't know when the last time I watched a YouTube video at my laptop was. Like, probably it's been years and years. So it's like, okay, this has to be able to be viewed off of a cell phone anywhere and have it make sense. So we put all of these things together, and that's the core of the program. Now, the best part is, not only do school districts in Idaho, including Valley View and Middleton, have this already rolled out and distributed to parents, and like very, very positive feedback from that. Additional districts are also initiating and including Nampa, which I think is I presented the Nampa school board just last week. They were in love with it. One of the school board members actually said, when I told them about the bill, in the open session, you're like, we should make a district policy about this ahead of the legislation. Like, let's do the right thing.
I love it.
It was beautiful. But what's really cool is, from some of the superintendent and board members are like, hey, could you add on an additional video? I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So I had people requesting about, like a specific human trafficking video, people requesting about vaping videos, people requesting about school lockdown videos. I had Lieutenant Sean Harper from Meridian PD in here last week. He designed the lockdown protocol for portions of Idaho. And he was like, okay, these are the do's. These are the don'ts. If you get a notification that your kids are on lockdown, do not run to the school, because if it's a real lockdown with a real problem, the last thing we need is 400 parents pulling up. I was speaking with Officer Gomez about that. He was in a lockdown situation where there was a man across the street who was having a breakdown. He happened to live across the street from a school, and they locked down the school. Everybody was fine, right? The man lived, and he was not threatening the school. He was threatening himself. But parents showed up to remove their kids from school. And he's like, you cannot be here. Not only will I not let you go into this room, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're armed. We are in lockdown. You can write whatever letter or get mad at whoever you want. I'm not letting you in here. And very fortunately, other parents had arrived and were like, hey man, come on, like, come with us. Like, we're all in the same boat. Like, let's go stand over here. Let the police do their jobs. So we have the capacity to customize the program. And it has become a platform for schools to say, hey, if we have the parents coming here, what could we do to educate them about these very complex things that they can consume whenever they want, get actual professionals, right? Lieutenant Sean Harper, he doesn't have time to go around to every single school and every single parent and talk to them about no, but here it is in this fantastic platform. So that's the platform. It's fantastic. FortifyYourKids.com. And again, we are offering it to free for the entire state of Idaho, right? And that's not like free for 6 months. It's not free with a premium boost. It's free. Officer Gomez and I deeply believe in the safety of Idaho children, and that's it. So coming to a school near you.
As you would say, a couple of things. So that's a phrase that you use quite a bit, Matt. Couple of things. So
that's so great.
Yeah, that's so great. I love that.
I love that.
All
right, couple of things.
Okay, so a couple of things. One, if there are people who are interested in participating in this like rollout. So one of the things that when we were talking with like Superintendent Critchfield and her team and some other like state education leaders was that they want to have schools roll this out prior to the legislative session, because they want to be able to take data to lawmakers to say, this is already happening in schools. This is the percentage of, parents that we are capturing with this type of medium. So, we have several school districts that are interested, and, you're rolling those out. Superintendent Critchfield talked about how she would, reach out to different schools. Everyone's going to kind of reach out to different districts, depending on their relationship. So that's just something of value. Like, and I've been telling parents, if you want it in your school district, like if you feel like, hey, this would be awesome, let us know. Right. You can just email me. It's Alexis at ourkidsourschools.com.
There you go.
And there it is right there. And then the other thing that I was going to mention was that the beauty of this program is that it's on someone's phone. Having events is great. Like, I'm always up for having an event. There are parents in Boise who, like the Yumi We All group, I just had them on the podcast. They are hosting events for their school community, and they are doing such a good job because those parents are interested. They're bringing in very engaging speakers, and they're giving parents like practical tools to walk away with, right? So those things are great.
It's great.
But I will say that there are having something in person, sorry, it's taking me a minute to articulate this. Having something in person is only going to capture so big of an audience.
Yes.
You're not going to be able to capture all of the parents. I know as like a PTA president that getting people just to a meeting on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. is nearly impossible. And you get a very small group of parents who are available. Now, that is not to say that those the people who are not there, they care. They want information too. They just can't be there because of all the other things that we have going on in our lives. So for a school district to say, hey, we just are going to host these events around our district and this is how we're going to educate parents, great. I'm never going to tell you not to host an event at your school district. Great, because there are going to be parents who we're creating community in that way. We do need more in-person engaging experiences. Full stop. I totally believe that. But when we're talking about an education campaign where we want to reach the most number of people as possible, this avenue of Fortify Your Kids where it's right on your phone, I think is the best way to do that.
Absolutely. And especially when you're talking about something that's not really like elective. Like you want to start a pickleball club, or we're going to have an in-person meeting. Some people show up, some people would have liked to be there, couldn't be there. It's like, but it's just pickleball. If you transition that though to like safety for your kid and all the kids are getting this stuff, you can't leave it in like, well, 100 people showed up. 100 out of how many? Oh, I don't know, 10,000, right? Like that's not acceptable. You need something that, yes, you can capture people in person and God bless those people. And I hope they bring questions and tell their friends, but you also need something for the parents that just can't make it or don't know about it and whatever it might be. And they don't miss that opportunity. It's like yesterday was gone. That was the in-person thing. That was the entire warning. It's gone. When are you coming back? Never, right? Like, or at least it seems, even if you say I come every month, it's like you catch 100 people once a month, 8-10 months, you're just like 1,000 people. You're not going to get there. So yeah, that's expressly why we made it. We wanted to remove any geographic or temporal proximity problems. You don't have to be there at a specific time. You don't have to watch this at a specific time. It's not a location. It's with you wherever you go. And if you're on your phone for 24 minutes, you can learn meaningful, actionable things about how to keep your kids safe with all tech.
Yes.
God bless America.
As Matt would say, God bless America. Yes, it's so true. So the kind of the last thing of this like whole big picture for me is that you and I are kind of participating in this like bill creation and, agenda setting component, right? Where we're shopping around for a legislator to, sponsor the bill.
We got one.
We did.
We got one.
Okay.
He's calling me in like a week and a half.
Yes.
He was really busy. He was like, I'm in.
Okay, I figured like the one I gave you.
You know the one.
Yes.
And we'll get the other one that's like the big hammer. I'm sure he'll co.
I'm sure. Yeah. Okay, I know we're like being
cryptic.
Don't
want to spill the tea.
No, we don't want to that yet. Like we don't want to spill it yet. Okay, I'm super pumped about that. Yay, that's super exciting. So we're in all of those different things. We're gonna get on the agenda, and so the next part is going to be us as parents, school community members, letting our legislators know how we feel about this, right? And their support. I mean, it really feels like this like bipartisan support, right?
Right.
And you've spoken with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle,
very much so.
Which is like super fantastic. That's something that I love about this bill too, is that it's like it clearly is addressing a problem that everyone sees. And that we want to do right by our kids and we want to do right by our parents too, in our communities. So, but that we're participating in these things as parents is so cool to me. As I was reading this article about like this founding of the like National Congress of Mothers, which then a couple of years later was followed by the Idaho Congress of Mothers, there was this really beautiful idea that was in the early 1900s, kind of which related to the value of motherhood and the importance of mothers being a part of something that was an extension of their home, right? They viewed school as an extension of home because that's where they were sending their kids, and they wanted their kids to be taken care of and safe and provided for in all the appropriate ways that the school community could offer for that. And that is what is really beautiful to me in this moment, is that like we're parents who really care about our kids and kids in our communities. And we also really care about parents. And our kids spend a huge portion of their day at schools. They're doing good things in schools. They're, our kids are learning a lot of incredible things. And so but to me, this bill is a really important way to be able to help safeguard our kids and help empower parents with more information they need to be able to make informed decisions in regards to their kids. And we get to be a part of that. And that is just like so cool to me. I love it.
I think you said it very, very well. And I think so many of the problems that we're confronting, just as a nation, it's we the people. We need to be the solution. And if we can't come up with a solution, why do we think that somebody else who we randomly elect and has to care about all these other things, they're not going to come up with a solution? And like, I've never done this before. I've never been a part of this before. I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like, I don't know how to draft a bill, but like, here we are. We had a problem. We came up with a solution. We refined our communication. We meaningfully engaged individuals. We continue to meaningfully engage them in good faith. We're not going to them angry. We're not going to them pissed off. We came to them with a problem and a solution. Like, it's not like, I mean, you're a PhD candidate in public policy. I'm a nobody. I don't do anything. I don't know anything. I have a microphone and a camera, and here we are. We can do this. We can address the problems of our community, and God willing, this will get passed, and we will have addressed the problem for all of the children and families of public school in the state of Idaho. That is mind-boggling, and we can do that. Everybody can do that. We just have to put our money where our mouth is. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love that.
I love that for us. I love that for us. If this happens, we're having a party.
Yes.
Like, this is going to be awesome.
Yes, it is.
I'm so pumped.
I really am pumped about it. So that is like the whole purpose of this like bonus episode today was to be able to talk about those things, and more information will be coming out on it. And I'm really excited. And if anyone wants, like, whoever wants to be a part of this process with us, like, let us know, because this is really amazing. This is something that's just so important. I'm excited about it.
And to be clear, if there's a school district or a parent or somebody out there at this point, this is how the program works. Your district jumps on board. I make a district-wide login. I'm not collecting emails. I'm not collecting parent information. So for instance, Nampa's login is Nampa, capital N, right? Login and password. West Ada, same thing. Marsing, same thing. CUNA, same thing. If you want this, all you have to do is get a hold of Alexis at alexis.ourkidsourschool.com and let her know. And then I will make you a district login, and you can start logging in immediately. I'll also send the program with a communication template and other tidbits like FAQs and stuff, because obviously the districts are like, hey, we're going to have some questions from parents. Like, do we have template responses, or do you have responses that we can consider? All this stuff. It's a piece of cake. This is the right thing to do. If you want it at your school district, you can have it today. Costs you $0. I promise you, get a hold of Alexis. We'll make it happen.
I love it. So, I mean, I use that phrase all the time. You have your catchphrases, I have mine, and it's been fun to engage with those today, Matt. So,
you know what I've noticed you started saying? What? You say articulate. You've started saying that more, because I say it all the time. I catch myself, and you've been like, I'm having a hard time articulating this. It's like, that's my word.
That's your word.
So Matt. Darling.
Oh, that's my word.
Indeed it is.
Indeed it is. So as we like conclude the conversation, I always like have the 2 takeaways at the end. So like, what's your takeaway from the conversation today?
You and I literally met less than a year ago.
No, it was a year ago. It was. This is like the end of October. We met at the end of October.
Okay, end of October. Exactly a year ago. Let's say exactly to the day. I don't know when, but I do know that as 2 people who knew nothing and had no direction, that in 12 months, we have done something that had not been done before. We are not special. We just wanted to do something. And sitting here with you talking about this, it's mind-boggling. Right? Like, we're not special. You can do it too. Other people can do it too. We have done something, right? Other people can do something. And that's what it's going to take on school tech, on school safety, on school, like the whole thing. The more participation, God, man, we've talked about it before. Pre-COVID, nobody even knew what a school board was. And then all of a sudden, people started running for school board because they're like, this is not right. We need to keep that momentum going, not in a bad, inflammatory way, not in a everybody's idiot and terrible. People are trying hard. But when you have a centralized intelligence base and a centralized value add to a school district, you're going to have a limited benefit, meaning like if you leave all of the solutions up to just a small number of district employees, you're going to have a small number of solutions. We need to decentralize the solution network. Every parent needs to become a solution, right? Every parent needs to become a problem solver. And if we did that collectively, think of how much better we could make our schools.
Oof, that's like an amen right there, Matt.
Amen.
Amen. Woof. Okay, I love that. So I've got to stop saying that phrase. I'm sorry. I keep using it. I love that. I love that. Sorry.
Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen?
Can I get an amen?
I saw this reel of these people with, like the mega churches where people start convulsing and stuff. I was like, maybe I should do that on the podcast with Alexis. Like, you say something great and I just throw myself on the floor. It makes for bad podcasting. Anyway, what were you saying?
Okay. Yes. So I was like, as I was listening to your takeaway, because I'm giving you an amen to yours. The, one of, I think my takeaway is personal today, which is a couple of different components. One, parents have power when we come together and we talk about the things that we care about. So a community is really important. And that's why, that's the lens through which I view the place that I live, is through my school community. But the other part of this is that it's been a year, as you mentioned, since we met. And it took me a while to have the courage to start the podcast. I had been on another podcast before. My friend had invited me to be on her already successful podcast, and it was a really wonderful opportunity. I loved it. I loved meeting it was a podcast geared towards women. I loved meeting all the women, and it was a great learning experience for me. And when I was done with that, one of the reasons I finished was because I realized I needed to go pursue the thing that I really care about. But I wasn't quite sure what that was. I just had this feeling that I needed to go do that. And I just kind of meandered for a little bit, for several months. I was like, I'm not quite sure. Yeah. I went to this thing and I learned about something. And that's when I learned about this PhD program. And I thought, oh yeah, that kind of sounds cool. And I applied. And in this process, I kind of came back to this idea of a school community. And I thought, I think I want to do this podcast. But I was nervous. I was nervous because I thought, I don't know if this is going to land for people. I know I care about it, but I don't know that other people are going to find it as compelling. And I met with a couple of people because I needed some courage. I needed some encouragement. And I met with a friend and he told me that he was like, Alexis, anytime I start something new, it's just kind of, jumping off a ledge. You just got to go for it. And he's like, if I need to be the person to push you over, I'll be that person. I think this idea is so good. Just go for it. And it was, I started in the fall of last year, and I'll say it, it was hard. It was a heavy lift. I started in my home, and I had to come up with, the podcast cover and, the introduction, all the sound stuff and the description of the podcast. Those things were barriers for me because those were not intuitive for me to figure out all of that stuff, but I figured it out. And I started and the episodes came out in October. And it was right before our school district had a really big election for school board members. And you called and you invited me to be on your podcast because I was talking about school boards and you wanted to give your listeners, information on that. And just all of that to say that 1 year later, I'm really grateful. I had encouragement from people, and I had the courage to go out and do the thing that I really cared about. And ultimately, I have had the positive feedback, and I have had a lot of kind remarks from people and encouragement. But the thing that is just most gratifying is that it's something that I really care about, and I get to be a part of this process. And sitting here today with you 1 year later, talking about how this podcast is now going to become a website and a larger organization feels incredible. And I have a lot of gratitude for the people in my life who have encouraged me along the way. And you're one of them. So thank you for being one of my cheerleaders in this process and someone who has supported me along the way. I just thank you so much, Matt.
You're worth it.
Thank you.
And our kids are worth it.
Yes.
And our schools are worth it.
Yes.
And you knew that.
Yeah. Yeah. Our school communities are really important. These are our kids. They're our schools, and we got to do something about it.
Well, you are doing something about it.
Yes, we are.
Look at you.
Yeah. So it's incredible. So thank you. And thanks for everyone who's been, coming along in the journey with us, because it's just awesome. And I'm so excited to see where this PTA tech bill goes, and then the other things that follow, because I think there's going to be a lot of, I think I heard someone say, it might have been you, but I know I heard from someone else that it's probably going to be 10 years of technology bills and legislation, because we are now in this scenario and we need to make sure that we're doing right by our kids.
Yeah, I think we're saying this wrong. I think we're supposed to say when the tech bill passes.
Yes.
I think that's the proper political, when I get elected, it's barf. Yeah, I think you're right. This is going to be the defining fight of our generation as parents. Did we stand up for our kids against tech, or did we roll over and hand them over? And that's not to be disparaging to people, but this is the way it is. And we all make these decisions. Do you hand the iPad to your kid on Saturday morning, or do you not? Are you handing them over to untold developers and trillions of dollars, or are you requiring them to be bored and bother you and be loud and annoying and get out of the house and get dirty and shoot BB guns and crash bikes and be human beings in the world? This will be our defining fight, especially in schools. And man, I'm going to know what I did. I think you're going to know what you did. And I think we're going to know what we tried to do for the state of Idaho and what we accomplished. Only time will tell. But we are just starting to scratch the surface of the risk, the considerations. Let's not remove all tech from schools. Let's utilize it as effectively and appropriately as possible. Let's make genius children. But in the pursuit of those children, let's not dumb down their humanity with an over-reliance on tech.
Amen, man. Thanks for the conversation. It's been amazing.
Thank you.